entrepreneurs, business titans, not just the region, the country, but the globe. And you're inviting them all together to say, how are we talking about sharing best practices? How are we talking about how are we talking about creating ecosystems and creating real measurements of economic growth that sees everybody? It's a really big deal, and so I'm proud to be here. That Maryland is the only state that has their governor here, and that's showing how important it is, the Afro-Tech community is to our state, how important it is to the country, and I want them to know that not just is everyone here deeply appreciated, but I want them all to come to the state of Maryland.
Governor Wes Moore, President Obama was known as the social media president, and then moving forward, we've seen some other presidents call social media fake news. How do you see technology and policy coming together?
You know,
for good?
I see our ability to be able to touch each other, to reach each other, to share ideas and concepts, to reconnect. I mean, there's a power that social media does bring to this dynamic. I think we do need to make sure that we are careful with it, because there are people who are using it to manipulate. There are people who are using it to spread misinformation. There are people who are using it to spread hate. And so I do think we always have to have a sense of reality about that as well. But also, I think we cannot forget to embrace the things that make social media so important. It is the chance to open up education and open up a sense of connection that for many people, had it not been for social media, that wouldn't be there. So I know it's something that we embrace. I know it's something that we've used it to not just share messages about what's going on in our state, but making sure that people outside of the state know all the great things that are happening in the state of Maryland. And it's something we'll continue to use to make sure we're helping to share our story.
So I'd like to parlay for a question. You mentioned education. So how do you feel that what does education play in regards to teaching to be in this space? Beginning, I want to say, with preschool. Talk to me.
I would say technology and the proper usage of technology has been one of the greatest mechanisms we have to level the playing field, to make sure that no matter where you call home, no matter what your family background is, no matter what resources that you come into, our ability to use technology to be able to help provide opportunity is huge. I mean, one of the big things we've pushed on has been things like broadband expansion. And we've been able to work very closely with the Biden-Harris administration to make sure that, as I've said, by the end of our first term, I want everyone in our state wired, whether they call Western Maryland or the Eastern Shore or Baltimore City or everywhere in between. No matter where they call home, making sure that type of opportunity is there and available, because if we're going to have a technological revolution, that needs to be something, it's a revolution that benefits everybody and not just the people who have access. That when we're talking about proper usage of education, it's about how are you helping people to expand their worlds, to know what else is out there. And frankly, to help use education is something where we're teaching our young people and our children how not just to be employees, but how to be employers, how to open up skill sets for them to be able to walk through doors that for many of our kids didn't even know existed. And so using technology wisely really does become this ultimate leverage point. And I think education is a huge part of us being able to use it wisely.
So, can I follow up, please?
Of course.
So, what policies do you think need to be in play to ensure what you're saying?
I think it goes from everything from how we're talking about teacher recruitment and teacher training, making sure that our educators are actually trained up on this. Because the big thing that we have with a lot of our educators is there are some where they are just digital natives. There are some that this is a whole new world to how they've been teaching or how they were trained. So there needs to be some kind of standardization about how we're using these tools and using these assets, particularly because the kids, they're now coming up. There are kids who are coming up who literally have had technological devices in their hands from their first days. So we need to make sure we have educators that understand that, appreciate that, and know how to teach on that. We've got to make sure that we do have proper guardrails on them though as well, where not everything or every piece of information that people are going to get online is either accurate or useful. So how are we distinguishing between the two? How are we making sure that the education that our students are getting is something that is helping them to understand their history, appreciate their history, appreciate their future, and go grab it, and not something that is distorting their view of themselves, their history, or the people who are around them. And I do think another big thing we've got to focus on is how are we democratizing usage. And that includes things like broadband access. That includes things like making sure that we can have tablets and proper distribution inside of classrooms, that, you know, just because you might come from a community or a neighborhood that might be under-resourced, how are we introducing the proper resources to help them get the type of economic mobility that we're all hoping for?
You used to be an entrepreneur in
I did.
State.
Yeah.
If you had to pick one, only one, would you be a full-time entrepreneur or a passive investor?
Oh, Lord have mercy.
And why?
Full-time entrepreneur or a passive investor? Oh, that's a really interesting question. I would say I'd rather be the full-time entrepreneur.
Okay.
I've had the chance to sit in both seats, you know, because I worked in finance and I did debt capital markets before in Deutsche Bank. Then I went to the buy side over at Citi, and so I've had a chance to see what it's like to be an LP. In some cases GP, but still a passive investor. And I've had a chance to be the person who's kind of sitting in the seats. And I guess I'm the kind of person that doesn't mind jumping without the parachute. And I think that's what entrepreneurs sometimes are forced to do, right? Like, you are the one who has to make the decisions. You are the ones where if things go great, people are gonna give you the praise. If things do not go well, they're gonna give you the blame, and you might not be responsible for either one. But it's coming because you're the person in the seat. And even when I was serving as a passive investor and working on the investment banking side, the thread that I continue to see was the people who we were investing in were people who I also just deeply admired. And so I'd say if I had to choose one, I'd probably say I want to be the person who has the ball in their hands.
You want to run the show?
Yeah.
Part two of that. What are some of your favorite investments, or what are some recommendations you would make for the average income earner in our
For now?
community? Yeah, for now, today.
So I'd invest in Maryland.
You love Maryland.
And listen, I think that there are a few things that I think are just going to have just explosive growth opportunities. I think what we're seeing right now in data science and AI and also quantum, I just think that these are industries that are just exploding.
Yeah.
And I think there's just a tremendous amount, even when you're watching kind of the growth rates that we've seen, I still think even with the kind of growth rates we've seen, there's still alpha that's left on the table in those areas. And so I think it's really important that people learn more about those kind of industries. They are places that they're going to watch increased leverage capital. I mean, look at the valuation of some of these AI companies. Look at the evaluation of OpenAI,
Yeah.
right? I mean, it's silly at this point. And so I think we have to get more people that have an understanding of that process and have an understanding of how to get involved inside of those industries. I'd say other industries that I'm really excited about also are industries of advanced manufacturing and ways that we can help to turn this manufacturing wave. I think you are going to have people that retraining, reskilling is going to be an important part. And frankly, there are just certain industries that are not going anywhere, even as we're having increased technology or frankly increased international cooperation. And I think those are actually going to be really important areas for people to invest in because they're steady and they're solid. And so, for example, when you're looking at advanced manufacturing that goes around HVAC systems, or advanced manufacturing that goes around
Plumbing, carpentry.
around plumbing and carpentry, like those are industries that aren't going anywhere.
Yeah.
And frankly, when the heating system goes out, there's no app I can push to fix that, right? Or I'm not calling someone in another country. I need to know who here understands how to fix that system and as quickly as possible. And so I think companies and industries that are actually investing in that, investing in the training for those things, I think are just going to be steady winners inside of inside of our economic growth.
Love it. Thank you.
One of your big mandates is sort of job creation, and I'm curious with this incoming administration and all the sort of havoc that they might wreak. How do you think you can better Trump-proof Marylanders, and specifically Gen Z and the coming generation who are going to have to deal with these sort of ramifications the most?
I think one thing we're going to have to do is when you have uncertainty, the way you answer uncertainty is diversification. And I think we're going to have a more diversified economy. I think about, we have now over 160,000 federal employees that are Marylanders. And, when I'm hearing things and ideas like eliminating a Department of Education, when I'm hearing things like being able to eliminate Schedule Fs and mid-level government and federal employees, the thing that I know is a lot of times you're talking about employees who have worked for Democrats and Republicans. These are not political people. These are public servants. And if you're talking about eliminating them because you want to have more slots for political appointees, not only do I think it's going to hurt efficacy of these industries, because actually I want people who aren't there for political reasons. I want people who know how to work with every administration, and they're just focused on helping the American people. But the thing I also know is when you're talking about things like the elimination of Schedule F, the elimination of middle-level government employees, who you're also talking about, a lot of whom, they're Marylanders. They're people who live in my state. And so I think that the way that we have to answer uncertainty is diversification. We've got to make sure that we are investing in and involved in other industries, that it's not so much, how are we proofing ourselves against an administration or a certain person. I want to make sure that we have an economy that grows no matter who's sitting in an Oval Office. I don't think any state is doing itself justice if it's overly reliant on who's sitting in the White House. I think you got to make sure you have an economy that grows regardless of who the Senate is or who the House is or who whatever like that. And I think that that's really what we are continuing to move towards.
Governor, kind of going on. I was going to say, kind of piggybacking off of this question. So, not even just looking at the economy and things like that, but looking at women's rights, looking at LGBTQ rights, looking at a lot of different things, and it's the social issues. There's a lot of people who are scared right now. There's a lot of people who are concerned because you're going to have a Republican in charge of the presidency, the Senate, both chambers of Congress. You're going to have a Supreme Court there's not going to be a lot of checks and balances in place. How are a lot of Democratic governors safeguarding their states when it comes to making sure that people are safe, that they're not worried about being ostracized for their gender, their sexual orientation, color of their skin, things of that nature?
One thing I've said, within our state is, for everyone who comes to the state of Maryland, I believe humanity is humanity. I don't put lines of distinction on it, and I think that part of that means that you can't just, as Dr. King says, laws don't change the heart, but laws do protect me from the heartless. And so that's why we've done things in our laws and be able to make alterations in our books. So, for example, in this last election, we voted to put reproductive health and reproductive rights in our state's constitution. So when I said Maryland is going to be a safe haven for abortion rights and reproductive health, not only did I mean that, it's now in our state's constitution. That we've actually passed laws to be able to strengthen supports for the LGBTQ IA plus community, to know that when they're coming to the state of Maryland, they're coming to a place where hate will find no oxygen in the state of Maryland. And so I do think it's important that that all of us as leaders, that we speak with a very clear voice and an unapologetic voice. And I think we need to have laws that are in place that can make sure that if there's any other overreach or overstretch of this, that we have what it entails to make sure that our states can be safe havens for basic humanity and for people to feel safe in their own communities, in their own homes, and in their own skin.
What would you want to say to people? So, Harris County, where Houston is obviously more of a blue county and a very ruby red state, a lot of things. What would you want to say to the people who are living here in Texas who maybe, there's still a constitutional ban, although it's not enforceable against same-sex marriage, some of the strictest abortion laws in the country here in the state of Texas. What would you want to say to those people who are here in Texas, maybe not in Maryland, or maybe not in Illinois or California or something like that? To them, what would you want to say to them?
Well, one, I would say come to Maryland. Because you come to the state of Maryland, you never have to worry about that. If you come to the state of Maryland, you can love who you want to love. and knowing the state of Maryland, you're going to find acceptance. That if you come to the state of Maryland, if you if you're seeking health care and you're seeking reproductive health care, that decision, you will have the option of making that decision between you and your doctor, and no one else is going to interfere with that decision or that very difficult conversation. That if you're coming to the state of Maryland, that books that are celebrating our collective diversity, books that are celebrating our history, that we've actually passed legislation to saying you cannot ban books in our state. If that's a place and if that's the kind of environment you believe in, I really would say that there are places in our country, the state of Maryland, one of them, that you will find a welcoming environment for yourself and your family.
Sir, question.
On the opposite side of that, Afrotech serves as a pocket of joy in this ecosystem of hate, right? How would you advise attendees to maintain that momentum of joy, especially if they're going back to spaces that are not as representative, right, of what they see?
One of the beautiful things about Afrotech is when you come here, you don't leave alone. Mm-hmm. You leave connected.
Yeah.
Right? You leave connected with entrepreneurs from all over the globe who are doing really interesting work. I can say right now, I've already exchanged information with countless folks, and because I'm trying to tell them why they should come to the state of Maryland, why they should like this stuff. But I think this is real, right? Because I think people are leaving here with a whole new contact list, and people who are there to not just coordinate and not just collaborate with, but frankly, sometimes it's just people's like, listen, I need someone whose ear I can bend for a second to tell them about what I'm got to deal with and what I'm going through right now. Or someone saying, at this next stage of my business, this is a new phase for me. I'm now growing at a certain clip that we had never grown at before. Who can I reach out to and talk to that has gone through this? And so they can say, listen, these are the 3 things that you probably want to think about in your next phase of your individual growth. And so I'd say the big thing for folks here in Afrotech is, don't leave alone. Make sure you're leaving with people who will be able to guide you, help you, battle board with you through whatever stage that you might be at. Because the great thing about Afrotech is everybody's rooting for everybody here.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I mean? Like, no one's walking away thinking like, I want everybody to fail. You're here because you're rooting for everyone else here. Because if we all win, we all win. And so that's the beautiful thing that I think people are taking from Afrotech.
Absolutely, and you're right. We're all rooting, even though you're a member of 06, and I'm a brother of 1911, particularly. I'm still rooting for you to win. No, there's a beautiful technology that exists in community, and I think that's what you just described. How would you advise individuals who are still intimidated, even on Friday? It says, I don't know if I have what it takes to approach that person. How do they leverage these moments?
Well, first thing I say on the whole 1911 thing, one of the great things about technology is you can always transfer over. So anytime you want to come to life. But the thing I say is that the great thing about entrepreneurs is entrepreneurs are fearless. Yeah. Like if you chose to be an entrepreneur, you are fearless by nature. Because being an entrepreneur is actually the hardest thing you can do. I remember when I became an entrepreneur, the amount of people who told me, wait, you're giving up your job?
Yeah.
You're giving up benefits, you're giving up this, you're giving up that. And what entrepreneurs do, they don't look at what they're giving up. They look at what they're hoping to gain.
Yeah.
And so I think one of the great things is about, for anybody here who's thinking to themselves, I don't know if I want to talk to this person might be too big for me, and blah, blah, blah. It's like, you're an entrepreneur, aren't you? You chose to do different. You chose to be bold. You're already there. You're already in the water. Swim. You know what I mean? And so I think that's one of the great things about entrepreneurs is they're bold by nature. And so there is nobody here who has not experienced what you were experiencing, or is not about to experience what you were experiencing, or could not learn from something you can give as well. And so I would say, just don't ever stop being you, because who you are is what has gotten you this far already. Don't stop doing that, because that's actually the most dangerous thing for an entrepreneur to do, is to start being normal.
We have time for one more.
Governor Moore, I'd like to pivot to rhetoric.
particularly divisive rhetoric. On stage, you talked about being called the DEI governor as an insult, right? And I loved your quote, "I don't have time for the foolishness. I'm not even going to entertain it." What advice would you give as we approach, a period where we have someone in office who is known for kind of creating that sort of divisive rhetoric, and it's very triggering, and we have a tendency to be very reactive. How can we respond to that sort of energy in a way that is productive?
I would say we don't have to respond to all energy. I live by this quote of, don't let people that don't matter too much matter too much. I remember people thinking, when they said, how are you going to respond to every comment or every tweet or every this and that? And my answer is simple: I'm too busy to do that. I'm never going to allow someone to pull down my energy. I'm never going to allow anybody to take my joy. They haven't earned that. My joy didn't come from them, so they have no right to take it from me. And so I would just say in this time, there's going to be a whole lot of noise out there. Every day, there's going to be new noise. And every day we have to make a core decision: what is worth our response and what is not. And I think in there is wisdom. Because the people who are responding to everything, we are too easily giving away something to somebody who has not earned it and will not protect it. They are literally doing it to distract us. And so therefore, do not let people that do not matter too much matter too much. If we can just stay focused and know that, again, I think about the leaders in my life who I've always had a great amount of respect for. It's for them, when things got really loud, for them, things got quiet. When things got really busy, for them, things got calm. They just do a really good job of sifting what deserves my energy right now. And I think that that's what a whole lot of people in this country, that's what they're gonna have to do in this moment. Don't let people that don't let things that don't matter too much, don't let them matter too much.
Thank you.
Thanks, y'all. Y'all look great. Y'all need to go to Maryland.
I might actually go to Maryland now, man. You kind of.